and welcome to Knit Tea Live. Woo! It's been a couple weeks, which isn't necessarily unusual right now because of the paying gig, but still, it's been a couple weeks. I hope that you are having a wonderful weekend. I hope that you are surviving the heat wave. If you are living in a heat wave like I am, holy schmolies, it has been bleeping hot. I don't know about you, but when it's really hot, as much as I say, yeah, sure, I knit through the summer, and I do, my summer knitting definitely is not as productive as cooler weather knitting. Hi, James. Welcome. So welcome to Knit Tea Live. I'm so glad you're here. If you're joining us live, if you're watching on the replay, welcome. Whether you're watching right now or later, I hope you'll give this live stream a thumbs up, do all the YouTube things to help everyone know that this is a space worth checking out. Yes. If you are joining me live today, please say hi in the chat so I know that you're here and I can say hello to. So Knit Tea Live this week. We'll see how it goes. Because I'll be honest, I was struggling to think of like what to talk about this week on Knit Tea Live. I wanted to live stream. I didn't live stream last week. I took last week off. What do I want to talk about? And then this morning it came. I saw something we will talk about. And I thought today, let's talk about when we were new knitters and we were led astray by bad advice. What was the bad advice? Why was it bad advice? Maybe why it was just misguided advice. And but also like how you feel when you see other new knitters getting bad advice and you're just like, oh no. That's how I am. I'm like, oh no. Oh no. Please stop. So we're gonna talk about that. Then we're gonna have we're gonna do pattern spotlight. We'll look at, there were a couple new patterns that were released over the last couple weeks that we'll take a look at on Fiber Happenings. But this week, Fiber Happenings update was a lot more like make-alongs. So we'll see what the make-alongs are. And but there's one very exciting sale that we're going to look at. And I'm probably going to make a purchase. So I'm probably going to ask you to help me make a choice. There's one pattern I know I definitely want to get. And a sale that I think I want to buy something from. So we'll go through that journey together. So that's kind of what's up for Knit Tea Live. And then we'll just chat about whatever we would like to chat about. Because that is the fun of live stream. We can go off in unexpected directions. You never know what's going to happen. You never know. So quick hello to James. We already said hello. Hello, Samantha. Hello, Kathleen. Thank you so much for joining me today. And yeah, so let's talk about, I'm trying to think if there's anything I've forgotten. Oh, I know what I forgot. I gotta do my quick plugs. Sorry. Gotta do the quick plugs. If you're watching live, you can do a super chat, which is like an online live tipping thing, and then your comment gets posted to the top for a certain amount of time. So if you'd like to do a super chat, I would greatly appreciate it. If you're watching on replay, there is a new feature on YouTube called Super Thanks. So you can leave a tip in my tip jar using Super Thanks. Any tips that I receive are greatly appreciated, and they all get reinvested back into the channel and into the website. So yeah, and I realized I forgot my coffee this morning. It's in another room. That's okay. I have water. I want my coffee. It'll be fine. Hello, Gabriella Garver. Thank you for joining us today. I believe you are a new name here. Welcome so much if this is your first live stream that you are coming to live. So yeah, I forgot. Oh my God, I forgot my coffee. Oh, I have coffee. It's just in another room. So those are all the YouTube-y things. Those were the shameless plugs. And let's jump into the topic for today. So bad advice. This is what happened. I was in a knitting YouTube. ultimate goodie. Oh, well, welcome back, Gabriella. Welcome back. So I was surfing the tubes this morning, like you do, and I was in a I was in a Facebook group, and this post went up, and somebody was asking about taking the curl out of their stockinette stitches, which if you've been knitting for any amount of time, and oh my gosh, now that I think about it, memories are flooding back to all the incorrect things I was told about this. But anyway, if you've been knitting for any amount of time, you know that stockinette stitch just naturally curls. In fact, I happen to have a swatch. I just luckily have a swatch right here, and you can see what happens. This is stockinette stitch. It's curling. Now, this is a natural fiber. This is 100% wool. And I knitted this up actually I've been working on this review for so long, guys. So long. But I'm working on a review about like what I call workhorse wools. So this is 100% wool. Now this, I can totally take this, block pin this, and I am 97% sure that I will get the curl taken out through blocking. But this curling happens in stockinette stitch because of the shape of knit stitches. I always forget if they're wider than longer or longer than wider, but they're not a square shape. Knit stitches, the knit stitch itself is not a square, it's a rectangle. And when you have all your purl bumps on one side and all your knit legs on the other side, that difference in the ratio of the shape of the stitch causes the curling, because all these pearls are wanting to like compress together, and all of these legs are wanting to spread out, and so things curl. And hello, Jillian, welcome. It's been so long since we've seen you here during a live stream. Sorry if you're new to my live streams. I am a little bit like squirrel when people pop up. So anyway, this person came on. They're like, can I get this curl out of my knitting? Is there something I can do? I worked really hard on this. Somebody told me to iron my work, but it's still curling. And immediately I went, what was the fiber? What was the fiber? What fiber were you using when you were ironing? And can anybody guess what the fiber content was of the yarn that somebody told them to iron in order to take out the curl? I'll give you a couple seconds. I'll give you a little bit of time to think, what could the acrylic, oh, I just gave it away. Acrylic? Yes, James. James came up with the answer first. Acrylic, yes. Somebody told this poor person to iron their acrylic knitting in order to take out the curl. And I died a little bit inside because I was like, did she kill the acrylic? Did she actually iron it? Did she take her hot ass iron and went and you know the sizzling sound I'm talking about? Is that what she did? Or did she at least just steam block it with an iron? Which, that's not so bad. Steam blocking acrylic, I've had very good success with that. Never gotten any curl out with it. In fact, I've never, no matter how I've blocked something made with acrylic, gotten curl out of it. But yeah. So I just felt so badly when I saw this post, because I was like, I am so sorry that you were led astray by that advice. So yeah, and I just wanted to, I wanted to go through, I wanted to find her in real life and give her a hug. Because I was like, I'm sorry someone. First of all, ironing knits, hand knits, like really ironing them, not doing a steam block with an iron, but actually ironing your knits is, shall we say, controversial. That is a controversial tip. You know, you're the boss of your knitting. If you like the results that you get ironing your 100% natural fibers, that's your choice. But acrylic is a whole other ball of wax. I should have said something more punny. That's a whole other ball of wax, because if you don't know, acrylic is basically spun plastic. That's what it is. So how does plastic generally react to heat? Exactly. It melts. It doesn't do well. Now, there is something that people do with acrylic that is a choice. It's a choice you can make, where you can kill the acrylic. And that is when you actually do take the iron and you put it on the acrylic work and you let it melt a little bit. It's a choice. It's a creative choice you can make. It's not one that I would choose to make, having tried it and not liking the results. Yeah, I tried it once. Once. Like Johnny Dangerfield once. Not Johnny Dangerfield, Johnny Dangerous. Do you know the Michael Keaton movie I'm talking about? If so, welcome to my generation. Anyway. So yeah, that was some not great knitting advice. What is other knitting advice that you've gotten that later back on you went back and you went, oh, no, that was not a good idea. That was not a good idea. In terms of stockinette and dealing with curling, piece of advice I read this in a book, because that's how I first learned how to knit, was all through books, was you just do a selvage stitch. Just do a slip stitch selvage and that'll take care of the curl. No, this was a lie. I don't know if it was an intentional lie, but this was a lie. I have many, many, many times done a slip stitch selvage. Many times. Not once has slip stitch selvage prevented my stockinette from curling. Not once. Kathleen, what do you have here, Kathleen? Garter borders on swatches. Yes, it's terrible. Oh, 100%. That's a great one, Kathleen. As in, that is a great example of not great advice. Oh, and you see it all the time. The reason that you do not want to use a garter border on a swatch, a gauge swatch, is because the stitches that are around that garter border are going to be somewhat distorted. So you're not getting a true representation of the average sizes of your stitch. The reason that sometimes people recommend that you do a garter border is, again, to control curl. So the idea being, okay, you want to make a swatch, you want it to lie flat so you can easily measure it, put a border around it, a garter border, a seed stitch border, some kind of border around it, because putting a sizable, it needs to be sizable, a sizable border around stockinette will control the curl. But the thing with swatches is you don't necessarily want to control the curl. You want to get a representation of your average stitch size so that you get an accurate gauge, so you know what your tension is, so you can figure out what needle you want to use, so you get good sizing. And putting a garter border around a gauge swatch, a stockinette gauge swatch, defeats that purpose. It gets in the way. I mean, technically you could do it, but if you're going to put a garter border around a stockinette gauge swatch, you need to have at least a minimum of 4 inches in the middle of that swatch that is totally unaffected by that border. So you're actually going to have to knit a much larger gauge swatch than you would otherwise need to. That's what it comes down to. Oh, I know another piece of advice I see all the time when it comes to swatches. That people say all the time, and I'm just like, makes me go, ugh, ugh. Don't bother. Don't bother washing, blocking your swatches. Totally unnecessary. Oh my gosh, whenever I see that, I just die inside a little bit. Here's why. Again, it comes back to what the purpose of a gauge swatch is, right? The purpose of a gauge swatch is to find out what your stitch tension is going to be at the end of the project. Not while you're knitting the project, at the end of the project. And why is that? Well, that's because patterns, when they are written and there's a gauge on it, that gauge is based on the final completed work. Generally in patterns, you will see at the end of it, wash and block. So if you are intending at the end of your project to wash and block your piece, but you don't wash and block your gauge swatch, you can end up with different results. Because yes, washing and blocking can affect gauge, because everything pretty much can affect gauge. So, James, I hate that too. Why bother making a swatch if you're not going to wash and block? You know what? Yes, I hear you on that. I think for some people, and I get this, right? We get impatient to start, right? We want to cast on those stitches and start the fun part, which is knitting the project. And the gauge swatch can really feel like a stumbling block to starting the project, right? So it's like, well, I knit my gauge swatch. I want to now just knit. And the gauge swatch, this one seems like a hit gauge. I don't need to wash and block it. Does washing and blocking really affect gauge? It can. It usually does. Even if it's just half a stitch. Even if it's a quarter of a stitch, that can actually make a difference in the final size of your project. So yes, absolutely. Washing and blocking affects your gauge. The other thing too, I think the other reason people don't like to wash and block their gauges a lot of times is because they want to unravel the swatch when it's done so that they can reuse the yarn in the project, which is that's something else from Molly's like, you can wash and block the yarn, and if you really need that extra bit of yarn for the project at the end, you can unravel it then. It can be a little bit, like a safety thing. But no, they want to just be able to have the swatch on the ball of yarn, unravel it, cast on with that same yarn that they just swatched with. And I get that. I get that instinct. I especially get that instinct if you're dealing with like, you only have a small quantity of a yarn. Maybe it's something hand spun. So you really don't have a lot of options in terms of being able to get more yardage to knit with. So I understand why sometimes you want to be able to conserve your yarn and not waste it, quote unquote, on a gauge swatch. Because that's how people feel a lot of times. They feel like they're wasting their yarn with the gauge swatch. But if you're making a knitted, fitted project and you want it to fit, your gauge swatch is not a waste. In my opinion. Your mileage may vary. But yeah, that's a piece of advice that I've seen where I just go, yeah. So yes, I do wash and block my swatches. But importantly, in terms of that, by the way, if you're going washing and blocking your swatches, I wash and block them according to how I plan to wash and block the final project. Because again, part of the idea of the gauge swatch is that you are to some extent making a small simulation of the project that you're going to make. So if I'm not going to pin block my final project, I'm not going to pin block my my gauge swatch. I'll wash it, I'll lay it flat. One other thing, quick tip in terms of gauge swatch and getting an accurate gauge swatch. Cotton, I do a hang test, meaning after I've washed it and blocked it, let it dry, I hang it up. I have those hangers, right, with the clips. I hang that up, and then I have these clamps that I put down at the bottom to weigh it down. And this gives you a gravity test because cotton, plant-based fibers, slippery fibers, even superwash, they're known to grow. And the reason they grow is that these are not necessarily the most elastic fibers. And in elastic fibers, what happens is gravity does its job and they stretch out and they stay stretched. Unlike, say, wool fibers, which have crimp in them, and so they're elastic, so they get pulled, and then you let go, and it springs right back up. Like, for example, here's this. I'll pull it. springs back to shape. That is the magic of wool, is that elasticity. You don't get that with cotton. Wow, I'm so fortunate about this. Forgot my coffee, but I happen to have all this stuff on hand. This is a cotton, sorry, it's getting a little blown out. This is a cotton dishcloth that I've been working on. Notice, it doesn't really, it stretches, but it doesn't really bounce back much. A little bit, because this is garter stitch. It's too bright. It's because it's white. Anyway, it's garter stitch. The garter stitch gives it a little bit of elasticity than it would otherwise have, but so cotton grows. So when you do a hang test, you're simulating gravity working on that swatch over time, so you can see how much the fabric might grow over time and then account for that in your gauge swatch. So little tip about doing gauge swatch with cotton. Let's see, what's other piece of bad advice that I got? Slip stitch selvages, right? Okay. One was that it would control curl on stockinette stitch. It does not. It does not. But that doesn't mean a slip stitch salvage doesn't have its purpose. It does. But when I was learning how to knit, what the advice that I was always reading from various sources was that you should, when working a pattern, always add an additional stitch at each edge so that you can do a slip stitch salvage. It's not terrible advice. This wasn't like really being led astray. This is one of those pieces of advice that really just was maybe a little misleading, because if you're working on a garment that has sewn pieces, this again gets into a matter of somewhat of opinion, and it's a debate that goes on about whether you should have a slip stitch salvage for items that you're going to sew together. I fall into the camp of you should not. That if you're going to be sewing together two vertical edges, especially if you're using mattress stitch, you basically want a stitch on every row that you can sew into, so that you don't get in any holes in your garment. B, you have a stronger seam. But C, say you've knitted a sweater, a front and a back to a sweater, you would think that there would be an even number of rows between both halves. It doesn't always happen. Sometimes you get a slight discrepancy between the front and the back of the garment in terms of how many rows there are. So you have to ease a little bit of extra fabric as you're sewing up. And so instead of like going, I'm going to sew into this row, and then I'm going to come over and sew into the row corresponding, one side of the fabric you might sew into every single row, and the other side of the fabric you might sew every once in a while. Skip a row and ease your fabric in. I don't know if what I'm describing totally makes sense, but that's much easier to do if you actually have a knit stitch on the edge of every single row, as opposed to if you do a slip stitch, you basically have one stitch for every two rows along the edge. So it's much harder to kind of make those sort of judgment calls as you're seaming. When I use slip stitch salvages is if I'm going to have a raw edge. So let's say I'm knitting a scarf vertically and I'm going to have a raw edge, then I'll use a slip stitch salvage, but that's mostly for aesthetic purposes. I think, what other bad advice have we seen out there for new knitters that have led new knitters astray? Things that they were told that were like, oh, I'm trying to think of what was another one I was told early on. I feel like there were so many things, like so many pieces of information I had to be disabused of. One was actually my video last week that I uploaded about minding the gap when you join in the round. So when you knit in the round and you join together the first and last stitches, oftentimes you'll get a little bit of a gap, or a very big gap as the case may be. And when I first started knitting, I had knitters tell me, don't worry about that gap. Don't worry about that loose sloppy stitch. When you join in the round, it'll just work itself out as you keep knitting. This turned out not to be true for me. this turned out not to be true for me. It always looked loose and sloppy. It didn't necessarily look as loose and sloppy as when I first joined in the round, but it never looked good to me. And the worst was, even in terms of dealing with that gap, was people telling me, it's like, you've just got to, like, that first, when you join in the round, that first stitch, you just got to pull the yarn really tight, and that will take care of the gap. That never once took care of the gap for me. Not once. I'll tell you the only time that I have not had an issue without using some kind of technique. Joining in the round, not getting a gap, not getting a loose sloppy stitch. The only time that I have not had to employ some kind of technique, like one of the ones I demonstrated in my last video, was when I used 9-inch circulars. That blew my mind with 9-inch circulars. I joined in the round, and it was like I did nothing. I didn't use any technique to avoid a gap or a sloppy stitch, and it was just worked. And I got no gap. It looked great. I was like, well, darn tootin', I might be into 9-inch circulars just based on this. Not. I've tried again with 9-inch circulars, and I'm not jonesing to keep trying them. I gotta be honest. By the way, random update on that whole shebang. If you've watched, I did a review a couple months ago on using 9-inch circulars, and it wasn't like the worst experience of my life or anything. And I wouldn't discourage people from trying 9-inch circulars the way I might with, say, the Addy Flexi Flips, which has, the stock on that has only lowered with time. I didn't have a very high opinion of my experience with the Addy Flexi Flips when I reviewed them. And over time, that opinion has only worsened. But Addy makes great products overall. That just was one that didn't work for me. I know people who love them. I've seen the comments. I know people who absolutely love the Addy Flexi Flips. And if they work for you, that's great. I'm glad you found a tool that works for you. Just wasn't my jam. But yeah, anybody else have any advice that if they would let a new knitter know, like, somebody tells you this is not the thing to do. This is not it. If not, I think we're going to move on to starting pattern spotlight. But let me know. Let me know if you have any other thoughts on pieces of advice that you got that later on you learned was, that led me astray. That did not take me down the garden path. That led me down a different path. Let me know in the comments, but oh, this is a really good one. Wow, there's so many round swatching. So many round swatching. Kathleen, oh, you don't need to swatch in the round. You know what? Not only is that terrible advice because it's not true, it's also something that knitters are not told. Like, I was knitting hats for years and they'd be too big. And I was always like, I don't get what I'm doing wrong. I swear I'm swatching correctly. And finally I took an online class on hat knitting, and somebody talked about knitting in the round for a swatch and that being necessary. And I was like, oh my knitting gods. I had no idea. Like, nobody told me this. No book I ever read. I had books on knitting hats, and they never specifically said you need to knit your gauge swatch in the round if you're knitting in the round. It was like, oh my, mind blown. By the way, you might be asking, why does that matter? Why do you need to knit in the round your swatch? The reason it matters is because most knitters, their knit stitches and their purl stitches are not the exact same size. If you knit Western style, which I'm going to guess most people watching this do, and that means you wrap your yarn counterclockwise around the needle. When you knit your purl stitch, the yarn actually takes a longer path around the needle than your knit stitch. So a lot of times the purl stitch will be a little bit looser than your knit stitch. This is also what causes a problem called rowing out. And that's when you have rows of stitches and you get this kind of like unsightly ditch in between 2 rows of knitting. It's usually happening because either your knit stitch or your purl stitch is looser than the other. Usually it's the purl stitch. And it's usually the purl stitch because the purl stitch takes that longer path around the needle. So when you knit in the round and you knit stockinette, you knit all knit stitches, right? So you're going to get a different gauge than if you knit stockinette flat where you're alternating rows of knits and purls. So that's why you have to knit a swatch in the round if you're going to knit a project in the round. But here's the good news. Because you do not have to do an actual swatch in the round. Because to knit a swatch in the round, to get a sizable enough swatch, you almost need to knit a small hat. That's a lot of yarn. Even I'm going, ooh, that's a lot of yarn. But you can do a simulated swatch in the round, and I have a video on that. So thank you, Kathleen, for helping me plug a video. But yes, I do have a video on swatching in the round where I demonstrate how you can do a simulated swatch in the round. And it's pretty cool. It's really cool. So, and if you ever doubt any of this, grab some inexpensive yarn and test it for yourself. Do a swatch in the round, do a swatch flat, wash it, block it, and see what the difference is between the gauges. You might be surprised. That could be a fun experiment. Is that an experiment you'd like to see me do? Knit various swatches with different circumstances and see what the differences are between gauges. When I knit one in the round versus knit one flat, knit a gauge, don't wash and block it, knit a gauge swatch, wash and block it. Let me know. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. If you're watching on the replay, comment. Let me know if you're interested in that video, or give this video a thumbs up. Let me know you're interested. All right. See how I snuck that little plug in? There we go. Okay, so I think it's time, because we're about 30 minutes in, to start Pattern Spotlight. Do I need a little jingle for these things? Anyway, so we have a couple of new patterns from last week. Sorry, I'm going to just click on this now. So that's loading while I bring this up. Is it this one? Yes, brought the right one up. Okay, so first up is this is a new crochet pattern from a friend of Knit Tea Live, Natalie. Natalie's Crochet Designs, and she has a new crochet beanie hat. This is the Daisy Puff beanie, and it is, like all of Natalie's designs, adorable. I swear, I don't know what I just find that her designs are always so adorable. They're just so cute. So here's the hat. Oh, and here we can get a nice close-up of the pattern. And this looks like a very interesting crochet pattern, because it almost looks like it has knit stitches, rows of knit stitches in between rows of crochet. And it looks like, well, I'm not going to use the crochet terms because they differ between the US and England. Oh my gosh. Do you ever feel like in the knitting fiber craft world that we almost need like an academy to just standardize internationally our language that we use for all this stuff? Like, you know how France has like an academy for their language to decide what are official French words? Maybe we need a fiber academy so that, you know, because it's become so international with the internet. We're also now interconnected with each other, which I think is a pretty cool thing. So this is adorable. It's very cute. I think it's very cute, very well done. This next pattern is from Amy Snell. And before I show you the picture, I'm going to tell you this pattern came out. She tweeted about this pattern a few months ago because I forget where, but this pattern was being published on something, a magazine, a website, something. And I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in love. But for some reason I couldn't like get access to it. But anyway, So Amy let me know that this pattern was being released for sale on her website or her pay-up store. Anyway, and I just went, yes! I'm so excited. You'll see it in a second. Anyway, it's called I gotta fix that. Anyway, it's called Emma Barine. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And this is it. Oh my God. I love this. To me, it's a shawl, okay? It's a shawl, but there's something about the design of it. I love the movement of the stitches. Actually, I want to bring this up full screen. I love the movement of the stitches. This is knit as modular triangles, and I feel like it can almost work as a multi-garment, right? Because she did a really nice job with her photos styling it in different ways. So it feels like you could wear it almost like a kimono-style cardigan, or you could just wear it as a wrap or a scarf. And I just love those sorts of projects that feel very like multi-garment. I think they're super fun. I'm going to click on her Pay-Hip store, and so you don't have to watch it loading. Bring this back up here for a second. So hopefully we can get like even better photos. And I'm probably going to just go ahead and purchase this right now because I haven't purchased it yet. I think I'm going to purchase it now because what am I waiting for? I love this so much. Like I said, it's lacy. I love the movement of the stitches. This is a modular, sorry. There we go. This is a modular project. So, and it's knit in triangles. And I just love that sort of knitting. I think it's super fun. Here's the back of it. God, I just love this so much. And I think this is a project that really would work with any kind of yarn, whether you want to do solid, a semi-solid, you want to go really variegated. I think this is the type of project that just could work with any kind of yarn. And that would give you a lot of options in terms of what you want to do with it. So I just love this. I'm adding this to my cart now. And the sale I'm going to look at is on Etsy. So I'm going to just go ahead and purchase this now. You get to watch me buy something right now because why wait? Why wait? Actually, I'm going to bring this up. So you don't get all my stuff. You know what? I'll wait. I'm just going to put it in my cart and I'll do it later. But I'm going to purchase that today. After we're done, I'm getting the pattern. I've been on a real pattern buying spree the last year, I feel like. And it's been kind of fun. Oftentimes I've kind of made up my own patterns. Like my sock that I'm toiling away with that you guys are probably all bored at looking at. But I will show you again this sock. I didn't have a pattern for this. I'm just kind of like, I just made it up. I didn't really make it up. I found this stitch pattern. Oops, there we go. I found this stitch pattern in a book. I really liked it, so I put it into a 2x2 ribbing sock. So that's what I did. But I have rediscovered the fun and the joy of working somebody else's pattern. So it is very cute. Snow Bunny 40. And welcome. Welcome, Snow Bunny. So glad you're here with us today. So there's that. And that's actually kind of it for the new patterns. But there is exciting news. So I'm going to scroll down. Scroll. By the way, as I'm scrolling down, let you know, if you don't know already, I'm in the process of migrating my website to a new platform. I'm actually kind of excited for it. And I should be doing that next month. Well, it's going to have to be next month because I'm changing the branding. I'm changing the domain name. But, yeah. So the Fiber Ending List, Fiber Happenings, it's all going to be a new website that's going to be branded as Carrie CraftGeek. I'm going to get my branding in line because, it's very important. It's very important to get your branding in line. All right, so next up, we're going to skip down to sales and make-alongs that are going on. So, there we go. This is from Babs Gets Crafty. She just decided to do a make-along. I'll read it. An unplanned knit-along to share my first self-published knitting pattern. The Dragon Scale Scarf is free for the knit-along in either PDF or blog online format. 2 balls of DK yarn and some 4.5mm needles are all that are needed. And it's really a lovely pattern. Looks really lovely in a variegated pattern. You can find links to this knit-along on her website. And I think that she's running it with a hashtag on Twitter. But all the details on the knit-along will be on her website. So you'll want to check that out. Really lovely. And we're going to, next we have another knit-along. This is a knit-along that's actually in progress, but it's a longer term one. So there's still plenty of time to jump in on the fun. And this is from Kath Andrews Design. This is the Into the Vortex knit-along. It's a 7-part release. So there are various releases. Release number 4 happened this week. So if you want to join in on that, there's still plenty of time. You'll get all the releases, the first 4 releases, and then you'll get the last 3. So yes. And let's just take a quick look at her PayHip store just to see what it says. And let me put that over there so you don't have to watch the page loading. Oh, sorry, I forgot. Sorry, I forget. Sometimes it's like, oh, I want to check to see where that's at. And I'm like, oh, wait. I still am sharing the screen, so sorry, continue. Oh, what? Okay, sorry. I'm having we're not going to be able to do this. Okay. Sorry, ran into a technical problem, so we're going to just put a pin in looking at the PayHip store. But if you are interested in the Into the Vortex knit-along with Kath, did I misspell that? Andrews, please check that out. She actually has really lovely, lovely designs overall. Really enjoy her work. Next up is the exciting sale. I'm really excited for this sale. I'm going to click on that real quick. And go back there. Okay, so there we go. So KBJ Designs is having her 10-year anniversary, and so she's doing a sale of her top 10 patterns. And you just need to utilize the code TOP10 to get the discount. And it's a 25% discount, which is a really great sale. So I figured that we would go ahead and we would head over to her Etsy store and take a look at the top 10 patterns that she has on sale. And I might end up purchasing one because I really love her work. I really love her work. Like this is one of her top 10. This is a sock. This is a very kind of cool sock, just looking at it right now. But yes, it's loaded. Yay. So this link on my website will take you to the patterns that are on sale. These are the top 10 patterns, and they are so cool. Oh my gosh. There's so many cool ones, and I'm kind of jonesing for one of them. But I actually love them all, so I don't know which one to pick. Let's start with this one. This one right away catches my eye. Let me put this over here while that loads. This sock right here, which is on the top row, furthest to the right, it's a sock, and it just has some very cool patterning detail that leads, come on, load. Let me close that. Sorry, this is taking a while to load. Come on, cooperate, please. Sorry. Live streaming. This is the fun of live streaming. There we go. Okay. Oh, God, this sock is so neat. Go away. I don't know what you are. Please go. Okay, I think this pattern is so cool. It is sized for adults, small, medium, large, and extra large. And I love the way that the foot of the sock, this pattern, comes to this point, this triangle. I think it just makes it so much more interesting than sometimes happens. It looks like this is a flap and gusset heel, which I'll be honest, even though I am knitting a flap and gusset for this sock that I'm working on, flap and gusset isn't always it's not my favorite. Let's just leave it at that. It's not my favorite too. But, excuse me. But I think this is so cool. Oh my gosh, burpee. Come on. But I think this is so cool. And frankly, if I really, really, really wanted to, I could totally switch the heel out if I wanted to. Like, honestly, if you look at a pattern and you're like, I don't know if that's the heel I want to do, you can always switch out a different heel. you really can. But I think this is so cool. I love this. Love it, love it, love it. So that's on my list. So let's mark that down as a possibility. And this is in the round from the cuff down. So then we have, this is so adorable. I don't know if I would actually use it, is the only thing. But it's so, oops, wrong one. Come on. The bottom row, the second, this orange bow scarf, it is so cute and it's so different. Like, it just feels original, even though it feels very classic, right? Doesn't it kind of like give you this sort of like 1960s Mad Men feel? It certainly does for me. And I love the textured, let me close that. The textured stitch of it. It's still loading. Oh my gosh. My internet is so slow right now. I think my husband is on the iPad with my daughter, and it's I can't be positive, but he might be. And it's like, honey, don't do that while I'm live streaming. I need all the, oh, finally. Okay. Close that. So this is it. This is the Moss Stitch Keyhole Scarflet, adult size. It's kind of bow tie ascot. I mean, would I wear it? Could I make it for someone? Could I make it for my sister? I wonder if my sister would love this. I just think it's so cute. And I think that if you want to make something for someone, this might be a really good project as a gift for somebody else, because you don't have to worry about sizing or anything like that. The thing is, it's Moss Stitch. I don't know if I feel like, I think it's adorable, but I think at the end of the day, I don't want to knit Moss Stitch. So that's off my list. Still looking at those socks. I do love a fingerless glove. So I'm going to take a look at, oh, shoot, did the wrong thing. Okay. Click on that. There we go. Click back over here so you don't have to watch the loading. I love a fingerless glove, and on the top row, the second pattern to the left looks totally like my jam. Totally looks like my jam. Show Snow Bunny. Actually, it works really well under a coat in the winter with a big, bulky scarf. Good to know. That's a thought. Yeah, I could see that. I live in Southern California. So I don't have winter, which is fine. I'm fine with not having winter. I'm not a winter person. I just happen to like crafts for winter people. But my sister would, but that'd be really good for my sister who lives in Maine, which she does live in winter. MG. Sorry, my heart has stopped for a moment. We might have my pattern. This is Struck by Lightning fingerless gloves. It involves, I can totally see traveling stitches. I love traveling stitches. It has this really cool textured stitch pattern on the cuff. I love textured stitch patterns on the cuff. Like, this is just hitting all of my serotonin buttons. All of them. All of them. Guys, I think I'm in love. I may not care what your opinion is. I think this is my pattern. And I love fingerless gloves. Oh my gosh. Oh, you're not even getting to see it full screen. Bigger. I'll show you bigger. Sorry. My bad. I need a second monitor. Maybe that'll be my next goal. I always, by the way, whenever I have a buy me a coffee, that's another way you can leave me a tip. And link down in the description box. And I do it. Thank you, Kathleen. Yes. I don't think I need to be pushed over the edge on this one. I think this is my pattern. Oh, I love it. I'm going to just go ahead and add that to my basket now. And we're going to make sure, want to think. Yeah. I mean, I do like cables, but not. I think, you know what? I think we all saw me fall in love in real time. Sometimes you see a pattern and you're just like, that's my pattern. And that fingerless glove. Oh, God. Sorry. My internet's being really slow. That fingerless glove is clearly my pattern. So I'm going to be getting 2 patterns today. And yeah, maybe this is what I'll do. For that fingerless glove, I'm going to shop my stash because I got a lot. I have a lot of sock yarn, and I'm pretty sure that's knitted with fingering weight yarn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shop my stash. I'm going to shop my stash, and I'm going to put up some options. Sorry. All of a sudden inspiration hit me of what yarns I'm going to consider for this, but I'm going to put them up on my Instagram, and you can help me decide what yarn to choose for this project. So, yay. It's always fun. It's really fun. I did this with, I've done this with a couple of different patterns that I've bought, usually during the course of live streaming, where I then have you help me choose what yarn to pick. It's fun. It's a good time. So, yeah. Yay! I'm so excited. I'm so excited. That's added to my basket. So I'm going to make those purchases offline once the live stream is done because my internet is being wicked slow. Wicked slow. And let's see, we have a couple minutes left. If anybody has any questions, any comments, anything, I'd love to hear them. But otherwise, I'm going to just scroll through, make sure I didn't miss any comments. I did not. So I'm going to just start wrapping things up. So what is coming up? I shot a video yesterday, so I will work to get that up next Friday, and it is going to be a video on a short row technique. I'm showing off how to do the shadow stitch short row. I love short rows. I do not love wrap and turn. So I've tried out many short row techniques, and I would say that shadow stitch short row is right up there with German double stitch short rows. So I'm doing a video dedicated to it. It was really interesting shooting it yesterday. But yeah, so that's going to be my next video. And then we'll see. I think I might try to live stream next weekend because we'll see what my family schedule is like and what my work schedule is like. But the paying gig that has been holding me back from my YouTube life, but has been paying my bills. The paying gig is going to be ending soon. No, it's been a great experience. I've really enjoyed it. I've worked with great people. It's just, it's working. It's a first season show. If you don't know, if you're new to this, I work in reality television. I have been working on a show that is now airing. It airs tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern, called You, Me, and My Ex. It is about people who are in relationships but are also very close to their exes. And it's been a very interesting show. It's been a great experience overall, but it is very time consuming when I am working on a show. And it has been quite the adventure trying to keep the momentum going with my YouTube channel, because I love this space so much, and I've loved the people that I've met through YouTube, and I just loved it. It's just been a really important part of my life this past year plus. And I'm so grateful that I've had this space, but it's been a challenge. I'm not going to lie. It's been a challenge doing the paying gig, which has been necessary, and maintaining the YouTube. But anyway, I'm grateful for all of you is what it's going to come down to. So anyway, I want to try to live stream. I want to try to start live streaming every Sunday again, because I really do enjoy live streaming. It's actually becoming my favorite thing to do on the YouTubes. I don't know if I'm good at it or not, but I just really enjoy doing it. But anyway, so we'll have the video on the short row technique. I'm going to try to live stream next week. If there's anything you'd like to talk about during a live stream, let me know. You can find me on social media. You can comment. There's so many ways to reach out to me. So many ways. So yeah, that's what's coming up. Is there anything else? No. As always, probably should have said this even sooner than I have, but down in the description box, along with, if you're watching on replay, really should have mentioned this sooner, I always have timestamps. By the way, for my videos, I'm sorry guys, I'm a little like all over the place suddenly. My brain is like shooting like this. Woo, woo, ding, 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 ding. Down in the description box, you will find links to my Buy Me a Coffee if you'd like to, tip me. Like I always say, all my tips get reinvested back into my channel, and the Buy Me a Coffee, I always on Buy Me a Coffee set up a specific goal that I'm saving those tips up for. So if you'd like to help that out, you can always buy me a coffee. Also, you will find my affiliate links. I am part of affiliate programs for various websites. What does that mean? Well, if you click on one of my links and you do a little bit of shopping, I might then earn a little bit, a small commission. And those commissions help support my channel. Like my tips, they get reinvested back into my channel. And as I always say, I would never recommend a product or a service I would not recommend to my very best friend. So, and if you're like, you can't do any shopping, totally understand. Great, amazing, unbelievable, best way possible to support my channel is to like, share, subscribe, comment. All of these things, all these YouTube-y things, lets YouTube know that this is a space we're checking out. Yay. All right, so I got all my plugs in. Thank you so much for bearing through those. Wow, I'm doing really well on time. I'm very impressed with myself. Thank you so much for joining me today during the live stream. And if you're watching on replay, thank you so much for taking the time to watch. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend, or the rest of your week, day, evening, weeknight, weekday, whenever you may be watching this. And as always, happy health and happy crafting. Bye.